I had a couple questions about this problem, so I thought I'd make a quick little video and give you some tips on how to solve it. The numbers in your problem are going to be different than the numbers you see here, but the strategy will be the same. So it says refer to the accompanying data set and use the 25 home voltage measurements to construct a frequency distribution with 5 classes. Here's the key information. Begin with a lower class width of 122, which they've already entered into the table, and use a class width of 0.2 volt. So before I go to StatCrunch, I'm going to go ahead and set up the boundaries here, the lower limits and upper limits. So if we start at 122 and we have a class width of 0.2, that means lower bound to lower bound. That's what class width talks about, the distance from one class to another, either lower bound or upper bound. So if it's a class width of 0.2, the next lower bound is going to be 122.2. The next one will be 122.4. The next one will be 122.6, and the last one will be 122.8. All right, now let's talk about the upper bounds. All right, so if the next class starts at 122.2 and this starts at 122, the upper bound here has got to be 122.1, because remember, every data value can only go into one class. So this stops at 122.1, so voltages between 122 and 122.1 would go in the first class. When the voltage is above 122 and up to 122.3, it would go into the second class. Now notice, to find the upper bounds here, all I have to do is keep adding the class widths that I had from the problem, which was 0.2, and I'll get all the upper bounds here before I even go into StatCrunch. So I've got 122.7 and then finally 122.9. Okay, so I've set my table up. Now I need to get the frequency. So if I click here and I open the data up, there's a lot of data there. I could actually do it by hand, but I'm going to use StatCrunch to do it. I'm going to go ahead and open it up in StatCrunch. And I want to bring it down and make sure that it's all in the window here for you to see. Okay, so in the instructions and in the other video, I talked about this, but you want to go to Data and Bin, and you want to tell it where the data are, and you're using the volt data to do this. And again, you're going to use the information that we just used there. You're going to start at 122, the minimum, and then the class bin width, remember the bin width they gave us in the problem was 0.2. Now here's the critical thing to notice here, bin edges, and it's always defaulted to include the left endpoint. That means it's going to include 122. There's a little bit of a strange thing in StatCrunch when it does this, and you'll see when we create the frequency table what that means, but just keep this in mind as I go ahead and compute. And then remember, we're going to use this new variable, it tells me we created that variable, in order to do the frequency distribution. So I'm going to go to Stat, Tables, Frequency, and I'm going to do it using that new variable that we just created. And then I'm going to put my window up here. Oops, scroll down a little bit. Oh, I lost it. Hold on a second. Problem went away. Oh. For some reason I can't get to the compute. Sorry, messing me up here. I seem to not be able to get to the compute button. There we go. Okay, and actually I don't think we wanted relative, we wanted frequency. So let's go back. This is a nice thing to show you in the options. Let's go back and edit this and just do frequency, because that's all the problem calls for. Now, if you notice here in the output from StatCrunch, it shows the first bin going up to 122.2 and the next one starting at the same number. Okay, that's not possible because you can't have a value of 122 go into two bins. So actually the lower bin, just like we did over here, actually ends at 122.1. The lower class limits here are correct. The upper class limits are not correct, and that's why I did them by hand over here. And then here's your frequencies that you'll go ahead and put into the frequency windows here and work your problem. So I just wanted to point out there is a little quirk in StatCrunch. I wish they would fix it, but they haven't. And so if you build the class boundaries like I did over here, the upper and lower limits, you'll have the correct ones, but don't take over the upper limits here because they're going to be marked wrong in the answer in my StatLab problem because they are incorrect. But if you do them this way, you'll get the problem correct. So I hope this helps as you work on this problem on the voltages.